So today we're going to talk about our generation, my generation, your generation. That is, if you're a Gen Xer or a boomer, and I've been called a boomer, not a boomer, 69 here. And what's going on with us with divorces? It's kind of crazy. And in fact, people in our generation make up 40% of all divorces now. And I think I know why this is happening. And I'm going to share with you why I think that is and why I think it's a bad idea.
Now, Algo served this video up to me. And when I clicked on it and I watched it, Algo thought, I know what you want to see. And because she was born in 69. I don't think she's 69 years old. I think she was born in 69. That's why she's an Xer. I just turned 62. So I'm just on the boomer side of the line a little bit. But it was really interesting because that hook caught me. And then, of course, I look at her channel and just, 2,600 subs. And it's like, who is this person? Well, she's a Christian and she's a divorce lawyer. And I thought, well, that's kind of an interesting mix. I haven't watched all of her videos. I've watched a few of them. Most of her videos don't have this. This is like her one viral video. Let's see, we can hit the popular thing here. So yeah, 108 views. Algo then served up then a video that a conversation she had done with Pearl Davis. You probably know who she is. So her next video is 14,000 views and then 11K views and then down from there. So she's a divorce lawyer. She doesn't need this channel. I'm sure the channel, you probably don't need a very large channel if you're a divorce lawyer to gin up some business for you because, unless you have a big practice and you're just turning a lot of people over. You don't need that many. But I thought it was an excellent video. And a lot of the points that she made were very good.
So we'll get right into why I think it is. People come to me, I'm a divorce attorney. I do consultations daily. Folks come in and almost always they're just tired of living with the same old it's day in, day out. And most of the folks who are coming in at this point, they've raised their kids and they're heading into retirement. And what they're looking to do is just move into their last 20, 30 years, reinventing their lives, finally getting to have their time, or at least having, thoughts or fantasies, I think, in many ways, having a different kind of relationship than the one that they've created over, the last couple decades or so. At least for me, I've been married 30 years, and believe me, there are days when I'm like, 30 years, then I've worked to do this 30 years, where my husband and I, are bickering over complete nonsense. So, I get it. I'm trying to think back to the weekend we went.
Now, one of the things that when we were doing our marriage crisis videos, one of the videos we wanted to do was one on divorce, and we really didn't do it. There's a conversation between Louise Perry and I forget who, another woman, but they had a really nice section. I've mentioned this video before. They had a really, and it's in the podcast is in her Substack paid area, not the YouTube area. But they really had a nice section on marriage, and because the reality of marriage is difficult to talk about. And it's interesting that this area of divorce is so high. And so I did a little bit of extra research, and the phenomena has become a significant and growing trend, particularly in Western countries. According to some studies, the divorce rate of people over 50 has more than doubled since the 1990s. And they list all the usual suspects in terms of it. Then also you do a little bit more research and you can see something that's been talked about in the corner about who initiates divorce. Women initiate divorce in approximately 69 to 70% of cases. Men initiate divorce in approximately 30 to 31% of the cases. You just do the math. The disparity is particularly stark among certain groups. For example, research indicates that among college-educated women, the percentage of divorces initiated by women can be as high as 90%. And so it's easy to see this in terms of our, our relatively hedonist and successful culture. I don't remember whose channel I was watching, but someone was making the point that, you know, if you're living middle class in the West, you probably have about as good a life as you can imagine. Now, Luke did a live stream this morning, and you're going to have to forgive me, Luke, because I have used Luke's monologue before he drops the link and lets other people on. But I think Luke's particular gift is just facilitating and bringing out the really wonderful elements of the people in the corner. Denise was on, and Denise has been on Luke's live stream before, and she's always a great person to have on the stream.
To put that out there.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to just be thankful for things today. But
do it. Do you have things you want to list that you're thankful for?
Yeah. I mean, I woke up well, first of all, I just went through maybe a couple weeks or a week and a half or so of I don't want to use the word depression because people get all emotionally triggered. No, not an emotional depression at all. I don't need to be signed up for ChatGPT therapist or, sent any meds. But I was contemplating the actual logistical problem we are in right now as a civilization, particularly based on the population demographic tipping point that is going on alongside all of the ideological conflict and violence, street violence. So it was getting me depressed because I could see the street violence resolving itself. The mobs will get tired and go away. The authoritarians will work through their system and figure it out. But this demographic thing, as the childhood experience shrinks and the elder population grows in relation to the hardworking middle sector, it doesn't look fixable, and I was getting depressed over it. But then this morning, I woke up, and I live on the shore of the Nueces Bay on the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, Gulf of Texas, we'll put it that way. I don't want to get into any conflicts with anyone. It's the Gulf of Texas.
That's
right. The bay is so blue. It is so blue. And my breakfast, and statistically, I am among the poorest of the poor in the United States because I live strictly on my earned Social Security. No subsidies, no benefits. I never apply for them. I just live on what I've earned. And I live well. I say, I'm looking out at the ocean in a view that would cost thousands of dollars off Cape Cod. I'd have to be a millionaire to have this place. Yeah. And I'm biting into the most delicious, sweetest watermelon that my neighbor brought over and asked me to cut up for everybody. And we spread the watermelon out among the neighbors. And 2 people in my apartment complex have, and I can say it because probably none of the nasty people watch this show. So, yeah.
Your neighbors don't watch my live stream?
No, they're not the nasty people. The nasty people are the drive-by Karens, the ones who say, "Oh my God, they're hanging clothes on the line. Get code enforcement over there right away." I do my laundry by hand, and I hang it on the line, and they leave me alone because I'm in my 70s, and they already say, "Hey, she's just crazy. Leave her alone." But now my neighbors are getting in on it because they figured out, number one, how much money you actually spend on the commercial washer and dryer. Number 2, half the time they've broken. Number 3, once you smell the laundry after a breezy day, you never want to use a dryer again.
Yeah.
And my problem was I kept thinking we need to organize community and all this other good stuff like we think. No, we don't. all I did was I was doing the hand laundry, and people started, "What are you doing it for? It's so much work." And I started showing how actually it's very pleasant once you organize your system properly. And I have a bin, and one of those plastic milk crates fits in the plastic 15-gallon square bin, and it fits exactly. So if you pump it up and down, you get a perfect agitation of an automatic washer. So you pump it up and down 50 times, and you will see how dirty the water is, which means your clothes are now clean. And I show, and it's all of a sudden, 2 or 3 are quiet, saying, "We're doing our laundry inside the way you do now." So it's like we don't have to organize people to become more aware, because I'm all for the lower earthly footprint stuff. I'm all for simplified, low impact living, but we don't have to organize to do that. We can, and I think that's what Jesus is about, is it's in each individual heart, and it just kind of fractally spreads. And that's what I want to say. So I'm going to get out of here so that Michael can say, "Hello, good morning."
I just loved her little speech. And that seemed like such a. I listened to this. This got served up to me not long after the Luke thing, and I just thought, oh, blessed is she who washes her clothes by hand and puts them out on the line. Now, I know some of you are going to say, "Oh, I can't put the clothes out on the line in winter because in Canada it'll just become boards." I get it. But this ironic way that we live, and this woman just gave, well, we'll let her tell more of her story. Again, it's just great stories.
Went to a wedding, which is always fun, big family wedding this weekend. And it's really joyful, but you've got everybody ranging from, the octogenarians down to little kids running around these big family weddings. And it's always a mixed bag, bittersweet. And for us in particular, it's bittersweet because I didn't have the wedding that I wanted. And, my husband gets a little touchy because, it was his fault. He let his mom kind of take over the whole thing. And I wanted a destination wedding. She wanted us to get married in their church and have, their people there. And we ended up getting married at his church in the middle of the winter. None of my family could come. And it's always been a sore spot. That's not smoke you can put back in a bottle. Anyway, so we go to this wedding and it's all touchy. So like I said, it's bittersweet. And so we're bickering about dumb stuff, not the least of which is like we're leaving the wedding and, my husband, for whatever reason, is walking 5 steps ahead of me and I'm clumping along in heels, which I don't wear very often. And so I'm like, like da-da-da, and he's, and, so my daughter's with us and she's rolling her eyes because she knows what's about to happen once we get in the car and all the polite face drops. For 30 years this has been going on. And, for me, it's demoralizing to not have a better handle on this stuff. And some days you just get tired. And there's worse things going on. I understand in lots of people's marriages, but, death by 1,000 paper cuts over the course of decades can get you to that place. And those are the people I meet with weekly. And, hey, what I'm wanting to do is, I just want to be fair. I want to get done. I want to have a good relationship after the fact, so here's what I'm looking for. I want to stay in the house and I want to, maintain my same standard of living as much as possible. And sometimes for women, that means spousal maintenance. Sometimes for men, it means, keeping their retirement or minimizing their spousal maintenance. But they're generally anticipating splitting everything down the middle. And what I'm in the, I think, a little bit unenviable position to tell people is, it really is true that 2 can live cheaper than 1. And while we can absolutely separate everything out, we can do it quickly, we can do it efficiently, you're really probably not going to have the same standard of living when it comes from, a financial standpoint. In fact, I've got some statistics that, I want to share with you that, women over 50 experience a 45% drop in the standard of living post-divorce. And it's about 21% for most men in our age bracket. And I'm talking about people who are 50 and up. And that's, continues to age up as people get older. 27%, what this is called gray divorced women, fall into poverty. That's more than a quarter of women who think they're improving their lives will actually fall out of, from above poverty into poverty. And only 22% of women remarry or cohabitate after they get divorced in their 50s plus. So divorce erodes your retirement savings, your home equity. And, for a lot of women, especially if they were in a traditional marriage where they were a stay-at-home mom, it creates problems with Social Security. And so they end up finding themselves, instead of this life that they've built together, this retirement that they were looking forward to, it really becomes a getting by. I heard a speaker, a really smart guy, describe it like in the Bible, Israel was in slavery in Egypt, right? And they wanted to go to the promised land.
And it was interesting because I didn't at that point and looked up anything in the show. It was just telling a Bible story. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Anyway, she'll go through. She basically makes the point that she's made there. Well, the health impacts were quite significant too.
Higher, especially when it comes to health. So divorced adults over 50 have higher rates of heart disease, diabetes, depression, and disability. Women, in fact, face higher cardiovascular problems, and, both genders experience weight changes going up, disrupted sleep, and weakened immune system. But here's to me what was the most shocking is an elevated suicide risk. So people are making a choice to improve their lives, but divorced men, particularly over 50, have a suicide rate that is nearly 9 times higher than that of divorced women and of their counterparts. So it's the loss of structure, it's the loss of community, it's the health problems that go along. They don't step out of a relationship that they've known into this new transformative, fantastic, relationship with, some young hot thing. I mean, it's like, that's the dream, right? That's the myth. It's like you trade up for a younger model, but, when you have standard of living, your ability to do things decreases, your social circle gets smaller. You really don't always end up, with the options you think you might have. So both.
Now, part of what was interesting too is then the comments. After my wife initiated divorce at 28 years, my depression and anxiety went away, my blood pressure normalized, eczema cleared up, lost 40 pounds, and I'm doing better than I have in years. I filed at 30 years and now in better physical, psychological condition. It's so funny. And then all these other channels, Algo is sending me then these other channels on all these kind of issues around it. So then Algo serves up for me this John Griffin Life 2.0, Why Single Men Are Happier Than You Think. 365,000. He's got 88,000 subs. And I don't know, I think he's far less compelling than the woman. He's all his videos, he makes these thumbnails, probably AI, that, the truth about intimacy and marriage. But all of his videos are him walking his dog in the woods. And he's got some kind of drone thing going
much
here.
Happier than most people think. In fact, being single is such a relief for most men once they release themselves from that cultural paradigm that they need to have a woman in their life in order to be considered relatively happy. Well, the truth could not be further from the...
Might want to rearrange that sentence. The truth could not be further from the... So, and so he's got lots of videos about that. He's got lots of videos about, why women are, will make you unhappy. And, part of it made me think about AI, because we've got all of this doom right now about how AI is going to completely recalibrate our reality filters because of all the craziness we're going to see on the screens. And part of me thought, well, yeah, I'm sure there'll be some of that, but we got plenty of that already with just regular video cameras and everybody else's opinion. Um, why I need to be single, at least for a little while. And of course, everybody then wants to find, another woman, but on and on and on. And it just struck me. And I don't know if, I don't know what the reality is of Denise. I don't know. She might be divorced. Haven't done a randos with her. She's been on Luke's stream a few times. She might be widowed. Maybe she's always been single. But her story makes me think of the Apostle Paul. I have learned to be content in all things, and her story about I had some delicious watermelon I shared with my neighbors, and I do my wash by hand because you know what? It gets so much cleaner that way. And I live on Social Security alone, but then I hang my clothes out to dry. And people complain because there's probably some HOA or some neighbor renters agreement that, no, you can't hang your clothes out there. But she's like, the bay is beautiful and the clothes smell so fresh. And I just thought, God bless you, Denise. God bless you. So, I don't know. Nothing profound, but yeah. It's a good thing to try to learn to be content in all situations. I'll leave you with that. Leave a comment.